In the heart of rural Jamaica, where the sun-drenched fields stretch as far as the eye can see, Keisha's family eked out a meager existence. The third of 5 children, Keisha, at just 19 years old, had already witnessed the relentless struggle of her parents to provide for their brood. The tiny, tin-roofed shack they called home was a constant reminder of the poverty that had ensnared them, generation after generation. Keisha would often sit on the rickety porch, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon, dreaming of a life beyond the confines of this impoverished community. She longed to break free from the cycle of hardship that had defined her family's existence, to carve out a path that would not only improve her own circumstances, but also lift her loved ones from the depths of their financial woes. One sweltering afternoon, as Keisha tended to the small vegetable garden, her mother's voice pierced the stillness. "Keisha, come inside, child. There's someone here to speak with you." Wiping the beads of sweat from her brow, Keisha hurried into the cramped living room where a well-dressed woman sat across from her parents. Keisha's heart raced with a mixture of curiosity and trepidation, unsure of what this unexpected visitor could want. "Keisha," her father began, his voice laced with a rare glimmer of hope, "this kind lady has an opportunity for you. She says there's a job in America as a nanny for a wealthy family." Keisha's eyes widened, her mind struggling to comprehend the magnitude of this proposition. America, the land of promise and prosperity, had always seemed like a distant dream, an unattainable fantasy. Yet here was a chance, a glimmer of hope that could forever alter the trajectory of her life. The woman, her features etched with a warm smile, leaned forward and spoke in a gentle, reassuring tone. "Keisha, this is a chance for you to work overseas and earn a steady income. The family is willing to sponsor your visa and provide accommodations. All they ask is that you care for their young daughter for the next 5 years." Keisha's heart pounded in her chest as she listened, her mind racing with the possibilities. 5 years in America, earning a reliable wage, and the chance to send money back home, it was a dream come true. Her parents, whose weathered faces bore the weight of their struggles, looked on with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "What do you say, Keisha?" her mother asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "This could be the opportunity we've been praying for." Keisha's gaze shifted between her parents and the woman, her mind swirling with a whirlwind of emotions. The prospect of escaping the relentless cycle of poverty was both exhilarating and daunting. Yet, the thought of her family's well-being, of the chance to finally provide them with the stability they deserved, spurred her on. With a deep breath, Keisha straightened her shoulders and spoke, her voice brimming with a newfound determination. "I'll do it. I'll go to America and work as a nanny. I'll do whatever it takes to help my family." The woman's face lit up with a smile, and she reached across the table to grasp Keisha's hand. "Wonderful, my dear. I'll make all the necessary arrangements. You'll be on a plane to the United States in a matter of weeks." As the woman departed, Keisha's parents embraced her, their eyes shining with a mixture of pride and trepidation. Keisha knew the road ahead would not be easy, but the promise of a better life for her family fueled her resolve. That night, as Keisha lay awake in her cramped bed, staring at the peeling plaster of the ceiling, she allowed herself to dream. She envisioned a future where her family's home was no longer a dilapidated shack, but a sturdy, well-constructed structure that would provide them with the comfort and security they deserved. With each passing moment, her determination grew, and she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would do whatever it took to make her dreams a reality. As the plane touched down at the bustling John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York City, Keisha gazed out the window, her heart racing with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. After the long journey from Jamaica, she had finally arrived in America, the land of promise and opportunity that had beckoned her for so long. Stepping out of the airport, Keisha was immediately struck by the towering skyscrapers, the constant hum of traffic, and the sheer energy of the city. The sights, sounds, and smells were all so foreign, yet she couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder and anticipation. This was the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one that would take her far from the familiar comforts of her rural Jamaican home. Clutching her small suitcase, Keisha followed the directions provided by her new employers, the Wilsons, who had arranged for a driver to pick her up. As the car navigated the busy streets, she pressed her face against the window, marveling at the bustling cityscape. The towering buildings, the neon lights, and the diverse array of people all seemed to represent the vast possibilities that lay before her. When the car finally pulled up to a grand, modern townhouse in a quiet, affluent neighborhood, Keisha's nerves began to surface. She had been entrusted with the care of the Wilsons' young daughter, a responsibility she took seriously. As the driver retrieved her luggage, the front door opened, and a warm, welcoming smile greeted her. "Keisha, welcome to America," Mrs. Wilson exclaimed, her voice laced with genuine enthusiasm. "We're so glad you're here. Please come in and make yourself at home." Keisha stepped into the immaculate, beautifully decorated foyer, her senses overwhelmed by the sheer opulence of the Wilsons' home. Everything seemed to gleam with an effortless elegance, a stark contrast to the modest dwelling she had left behind in Jamaica. "Let me show you to your room," Mrs. Wilson said, guiding Keisha up the grand staircase. "We've prepared a space just for you, and I'm sure you'll find it quite comfortable." As Keisha followed her new employer, she couldn't help but marvel at the size and grandeur of the house. The hallways were adorned with intricate artwork and plush carpeting, and the rooms she passed were filled with lavish furnishings and the latest technological gadgets. It was a world away from the simple, rustic home she had known. When they reached her room, Keisha was pleasantly surprised. The space was bright, airy, and tastefully decorated, with a cozy bed, a dresser, and a desk. A large window overlooked a beautifully manicured backyard, and Keisha could see a playhouse and swing set in the distance. "This is where you'll be staying," Mrs. Wilson said, gesturing around the room. "We want you to feel at home here. Please, make yourself comfortable. I'll let you settle in, and then I'll introduce you to Lily, our daughter." Keisha nodded, her eyes wide with a mixture of gratitude and trepidation. "Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. I'm very grateful for this opportunity." As Mrs. Wilson left the room, Keisha took a deep breath and began to unpack her meager belongings. She couldn't believe that she was actually here, in America, about to embark on a new chapter of her life. The weight of her responsibility as a nanny weighed heavily on her, but she was determined to do her best and make her family proud. After a few moments, a small, curious voice called out from the hallway. "Hi, are you Keisha?" Keisha turned to see a little girl, no more than 3 years old, standing in the doorway, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Yes, I'm Keisha. You must be Lily," she replied, a warm smile spreading across her face. Lily nodded enthusiastically and bounded into the room, her curly hair bouncing with each step. "Mommy said you're going to be my new friend and help take care of me. I'm so happy you're here." Keisha knelt down to Lily's level, her heart swelling with a mix of affection and apprehension. "Well, I'm very happy to be here, too. I can't wait to get to know you better." As Lily chattered away, Keisha couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. The little girl's infectious energy and genuine excitement put her at ease, and she knew that this would be the start of a special bond. Keisha may have been far from home, but in this moment, she felt a glimmer of hope that she had made the right decision to come to America. Over the next few days, Keisha settled into her new role with remarkable ease. She quickly learned Lily's routines, from her morning rituals to her favorite playtime activities. The little girl's boundless curiosity and playful spirit made Keisha's job a delight, and she found herself genuinely enjoying their time together. When Lily was napping or occupied with her toys, Keisha would steal moments to write letters to her family back in Jamaica. She meticulously described her new surroundings, the kindness of the Wilsons, and her growing affection for Lily. With each letter, she included a portion of her earnings, determined to make good on her promise to help build her family's dream home. As the weeks turned into months, Keisha's bond with Lily deepened. The little girl had wormed her way into Keisha's heart, and Keisha found herself cherishing the small moments of laughter, learning, and companionship they shared. Lily's parents, too, had welcomed Keisha into their family, treating her with respect and kindness that she had never experienced before. In the quiet moments, Keisha would gaze out the window, watching the seasons change and the city come alive around her. While she still felt a longing for the familiar comforts of home, She couldn't deny the sense of purpose and fulfillment that had begun to take root within her. This was her chance to create a better life, not just for herself, but for her loved ones back in Jamaica. With each passing day, Keisha's determination to succeed only grew stronger. She would do whatever it took to ensure that the sacrifices she had made would be worth it in the end. The dream of a new home for her family, built with her own hard-earned money, fueled her unwavering commitment to her role as Lily's nanny and the Wilsons' trusted caregiver. As the first year of her contract came to a close, Keisha knew that she was only just beginning her journey. The road ahead may have been uncertain, but with the Wilsons' support and Lily's infectious joy, she felt more equipped than ever to face whatever challenges lay in store. As the weeks turned into months, Keisha settled into her new life in America, finding a sense of purpose and fulfillment in her role as a nanny to the Wilsons' young daughter Lily. The initial trepidation she had felt upon her arrival had gradually given way to a growing confidence and comfort within the Wilson household. Keisha's days were filled with a routine that provided her with a sense of stability. Each morning, she would wake up early to prepare Lily's breakfast, ensuring the little girl was fed and ready for the day ahead. Together, they would embark on adventures around the neighborhood, with Keisha pointing out the sights and sounds that were so foreign to her, yet so familiar to Lily. One particular outing stood out in Keisha's mind. It was a sunny afternoon when she and Lily ventured to the local park, the little girl's laughter echoing through the trees as she chased after the ducks in the pond. Keisha watched with a warm smile, marveling at the joy that radiated from Lily's face. In that moment, she felt a deep connection to the child, a bond that transcended the boundaries of their different backgrounds. As Lily's primary caretaker, Keisha took great pride in her work, ensuring the young girl's needs were met with the utmost care and attention. She would read to Lily, sing lullabies, and engage her in educational activities, all the while nurturing the child's growing curiosity about the world around her. The Wilsons, too, had welcomed Keisha with open arms, treating her as an integral part of their family. Mrs. Wilson, in particular, had taken Keisha under her wing, guiding her through the intricacies of American culture and customs. Over shared meals and quiet conversations, Keisha learned about the Wilsons' own family history and the challenges they had faced in building a life in the United States. One evening, as Keisha and Mrs. Wilson sat on the patio sipping tea and watching the sunset, the older woman turned to Keisha with a thoughtful expression. "You know, Keisha, you've become like a daughter to me," she said, her voice soft and sincere. "I can see the determination in your eyes, the drive to create a better life for yourself and your family. It's truly inspiring." Keisha felt her heart swell with emotion, the weight of her family's struggles back home momentarily forgotten as she basked in the warmth of Mrs. Wilson's words. "Thank you, Mrs. Wilson," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "You and your family have done so much for me. I don't know how I'll ever be able to repay you." Mrs. Wilson reached out and gently squeezed Keisha's hand. "You don't have to repay us, my dear. The joy you've brought to our home is more than enough, and I want you to know that you have a place here, always." Keisha nodded, blinking back tears of gratitude. In that moment, she felt a sense of belonging that she had never truly experienced before, a feeling of being seen and valued for who she was. As the days turned into weeks, Keisha's confidence continued to grow, and she found herself taking on more responsibilities within the Wilson household. She learned to drive, a skill that opened up a world of new possibilities, and began to envision a future where she could not only support her family back home, but also build a life for herself in America. In the evenings, Keisha would often sit at her desk, pen in hand, writing letters to her family in Jamaica. She would describe the bustling streets of New York City, the towering skyscrapers, and the diverse array of people she encountered. Most importantly, she would ask for updates on the progress of her family's new home, the one she had been working tirelessly to build. "The house is coming along beautifully," her parents would write, their words brimming with excitement. "We can't wait for you to see it. It's going to be a place where we can make so many wonderful memories together." The Wilsons, too, took an active interest in Keisha's family's progress, offering encouragement and even occasional financial assistance to ensure the construction stayed on track. Keisha was touched by their generosity, and it only strengthened her resolve to create a better life for herself and her loved ones. As the months passed, Keisha found herself growing more and more invested in her new life in America. She had become an integral part of the Wilson household, and the thought of leaving it behind when her contract ended in a few years filled her with a sense of unease. Yet the pull of her family in Jamaica remained strong, and she knew that her ultimate goal was to return home and build a life there, one that would allow her to provide for her loved ones and give them the stability they deserved. Keisha's heart raced with excitement as the final weeks of her 5-year contract with the Wilson family drew to a close. After years of diligently caring for their daughter, Lily, and sending a significant portion of her earnings back to her family in Jamaica, the time had come to return home and surprise them with the fruits of her labor. The Wilsons, who had become like a second family to Keisha, were equally thrilled about her homecoming. Mrs. Wilson had planned a special farewell party, complete with Keisha's favorite Jamaican dishes and a generous gift to help her start a new life back home. Keisha was touched by their kindness and support, which had made her American experience so much more meaningful. As the day of her departure approached, Keisha could hardly contain her anticipation. She had meticulously saved every penny she could, determined to ensure her family's long-awaited dreams of having a better life would finally come to fruition. The letters she had received from her parents over the years had been filled with updates on the construction progress. After 5 long years, the house was completed. She planned to surprise them with opening a family business, and she could almost picture the faces of her loved ones when she surprised them. On the morning of her flight, Keisha bid a tearful goodbye to Lily. As Lily cried, she asked her mother if she could go with Keisha, making the already difficult moment even more tense. Keisha promised to keep in touch and told Lily she'd visit her in Jamaica whenever she could. Mrs. Wilson embraced Keisha tightly, whispering words of encouragement and reminding her that she would always have a home with the Wilsons should she need it. When Keisha arrived at the airport and checked in, she was stunned to see Mrs. Wilson and Lily sitting there, waving at her. Shocked, she ran over and hugged them, laughing as she asked, "What are you guys doing here?" Mrs. Wilson chuckled and said, "Surprise! We're going with you. Since your big house project is finished, we wanted to surprise you with a housewarming gift in Jamaica. Plus, Lily didn't want to part from you, so I thought, why not? My husband couldn't make it. Work's been hectic, but I took time off to be there for you. You've been part of our family for 5 years. You didn't think you'd return to Jamaica alone, did you?" Smiling, Keisha and the two headed to board their flight to Montego Bay. With a heart full of hope and excitement, Keisha, Mrs. Wilson, and Lily boarded the plane, Keisha's mind racing with images of her family's joyful reunion. She imagined the look on her parents' faces when they saw her, the tears of happiness that would stream down their cheeks. Keisha couldn't wait to surprise them and reveal the substantial sum of money she had saved to help build their new business. As the plane touched down in Montego Bay, Keisha's nerves began to flutter. She had been away for so long, and she couldn't help but wonder how much her family had changed. Would they still recognize her? Would they be proud of the woman she had become? With a reassuring hand on her shoulder, Mrs. Wilson assured her that her family would be more than proud of her. Clutching her suitcase, Keisha made her way through the bustling airport, her eyes scanning the crowd for any sign of her family. Finally, she spotted her parents and younger siblings, waving excitedly and calling out her name. Keisha's face broke into a wide smile as she rushed towards them, enveloping them in a tight embrace. "Keisha, me daughter, we've missed you so much," her mother cried, tears streaming down her face. "And look at you, all grown up," her father exclaimed, his eyes shining with pride. Keisha's 2 younger siblings, who had been mere children when she left, now stood before her as young adults, eager to hear all about her adventures in America. As they walked towards the car, Keisha couldn't help but feel a sense of joy and relief to be back home, surrounded by the people she loved most. "I have so much to tell you all," Keisha said, her voice brimming with excitement. And I have a special surprise for the family. Mom, Dad, this is my employer, Mrs. Wilson, who has been like a second mother to me. And this is Lily, her daughter. They surprised me at the airport. I had no idea they were going to accompany me home. Mrs. Wilson greeted Keisha's parents, and Lily smiled and waved hello at them. They all boarded the vehicle and started their journey to Keisha's rural community. Her parents exchanged a curious glance, but Keisha remained tight-lipped, determined to reveal her gift once they reached their destination. The drive through the familiar streets of her hometown felt both comforting and surreal, as Keisha took in the sights and sounds she had missed so dearly. Finally, they pulled up to a small, unfinished house on the outskirts of the village. Keisha's heart sank as she realized that the construction she had been funding for years had not progressed as she had been led to believe. Keisha asked, "Mom, Dad, what's going on? Isn't this the house and the land that I bought to build a house? Why is the house an incomplete structure?" Her parents, with their faces rubbed in shame, started looking around, unable to speak. "Mom, Dad, are you going to answer me? What's going on? Where is the house?" Keisha yelled, desperation creeping into her voice. Her mom broke into tears, unable to speak. Her dad summoned the courage to tell her, "Keisha, we're so sorry. We're so sorry we didn't know how to tell you. We thought we had time to make it right, but here we are. We're so sorry, Keisha." Her two younger siblings shook their heads in shame, looking at their parents and then back at Keisha. As tears welled up in Keisha's eyes, she staggered back, almost falling to the ground. But Mrs. Wilson caught her just in time. Lily, seeing Keisha crying, started to cry too, asking, "Keisha, are you okay? What happened? Why are you crying? I don't want you to be sad." As Keisha eased her way down to the ground, she wept, the weight of the situation crashing down on her. "This is it, Keisha," her father said, his voice tinged with shame. "We're still working on it, but it's been slow going." Keisha's mind raced, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. "But the letters you've been sending me, all the money I've been sending you, where has it all gone?" Her parents exchanged a guilty look, and Keisha's stomach twisted with dread. She had poured her heart and soul into building a better life for her family, only to be met with this devastating reality. Her father cleared his throat nervously. "Well, you see, Keisha, there were some complications. The construction has been delayed, and we've had to use some of the money for other things." Keisha's heart sank as the realization dawned on her. "Other things? What do you mean?" She pressed, her voice rising in pitch. Her mother placed a hand on her arm, her expression apologetic. "We're so sorry, Keisha. The money you sent has helped us so much, but we've had to use some of it for medical bills and other urgent needs. The house just hasn't been a priority." Keisha felt the blood drain from her face as the truth unfolded before her. All the years of hard work, the sacrifices she had made, the dreams she had nurtured, they had all been for naught. Her family had betrayed her trust, using the money she had sent for their own purposes, rather than building the home she had envisioned. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she turned to Mrs. Wilson, who had been silently observing the exchange. "I don't understand," Keisha said, her voice trembling. "I worked so hard, sent every penny I could. How could they do this?" Mrs. Wilson wrapped a comforting arm around Keisha's shoulders. Her own eyes filled with sympathy. "Oh, my dear," she said softly. "I'm so sorry you're having to go through this. But remember, this is not your fault. Your family has taken advantage of your generosity, and that is a terrible betrayal." Keisha nodded numbly, the weight of her shattered dreams crushing her spirit. As she stood there, surrounded by her family, she felt utterly alone, her trust in them shattered beyond repair. The future she had envisioned, the stability she had hoped to provide for her loved ones, had crumbled before her eyes, leaving her with a sense of profound disappointment and disillusionment. In that moment, Keisha knew that her life would never be the same. The journey that had started with such hope and promise had taken a devastating turn, forcing her to confront the harsh realities of misplaced trust and the consequences of familial betrayal. As she struggled to come to terms with this painful revelation, she couldn't help but wonder what the future held for her. A future that now seemed uncertain and shrouded in darkness. "Keisha, I have an idea," Mrs. Wilson said gently, breaking the tense silence. "Since things didn't go well with your return home, and your visa still has 3 months left to stay in America. Why not come back with us until you're able to figure out what's next? How about it, huh? And don't worry, all expenses on me. I'll get you a return ticket if you choose to go back with us." Before Keisha could respond, Lily's eyes lit up with excitement. "Say yes, Keisha. Please come back with us," she exclaimed, her voice full of hope and eagerness. Keisha stood there, stunned by the generosity. She couldn't believe Mrs. Wilson would offer something so kind, especially after everything that had just unfolded. "Thank you, ma'am," Keisha finally replied, her voice full of gratitude. "Thank you so much. I'd love to return with you guys. Maybe 3 months is all I need to think things through." Mrs. Wilson, always resourceful, quickly made a few calls and arranged a hotel for their stay. Shortly after, a car arrived to pick up Mrs. Wilson, Lily, and Keisha. Without looking back, Keisha got into the car, leaving her family behind. No words were exchanged, no final glances, just a quiet departure. As the car drove away, she saw her family standing on the lawn, their figures growing smaller until they finally disappeared from view. The days at the hotel passed quickly. What was intended to be a 2-week stay flew by, and soon it was time for them to leave. The sense of peace Keisha found in that time, away from the pain and confusion of her return home, gave her the space she needed to begin thinking about her next steps. Keisha's return to America with the Wilsons was a bittersweet affair. The joy of reuniting with the family she had grown to love was tempered by the utter devastation of her family's betrayal back in Jamaica. As the plane took off, leaving the island she had once dreamed of transforming, Keisha felt a profound sense of loss and disillusionment. Throughout the long flight, Mrs. Wilson sat beside Keisha, offering a comforting presence and a listening ear. Keisha poured out her heart, recounting the shocking revelations about the money she had diligently sent home over the years. With each word, her voice trembled, and tears streamed down her face, the weight of her shattered dreams too heavy to bear. "I just don't understand," Keisha said, her brow furrowed in anguish. "I worked so hard, sacrificed so much, all for them, and they lied to me, used the money for themselves instead of building the house. How could they do this to me?" Mrs. Wilson reached out and gently squeezed Keisha's hand, her eyes reflecting a deep empathy. "Oh, my dear, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I can't imagine how betrayed you must feel, but please know that it's not a reflection on you. Your family's actions say more about them than they do about you." Keisha nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line as she grappled with the harsh reality. "I just wanted to help them, to give them a better life. I thought I was doing the right thing, but it was all for nothing." "It wasn't for nothing, Keisha," Mrs. Wilson reassured her. "The money you sent may not have been used as you intended, but the love and sacrifice behind it were very real. And that counts for something, even if the outcome wasn't what you hoped for." Keisha's eyes flickered with a glimmer of hope, but the pain still lingered. "I don't know what to do now. I feel so lost, so betrayed." Mrs. Wilson offered a gentle smile. "I know this is a difficult time, but I want you to know that you have a home with us. We consider you family, and we're here to support you in any way we can." As the plane touched down in New York, Keisha felt a renewed sense of purpose. The Wilsons' unwavering support and kindness had helped to ease the sting of her family's betrayal, and she realized that she had found a true home with them, one that was built on trust, respect, and genuine care. In the days that followed, Keisha sat down with Mr. and Mrs. Wilson to discuss her future. They listened intently as she shared her dreams and aspirations, her desire to start a business and provide for herself. To her surprise, the Wilsons had a proposal of their own. "Keisha, we've been talking, and we'd like to offer you a life-changing opportunity," Mr. Wilson began, his voice warm and sincere. "We'd like to extend your work permit for another 5 years, and we'd also like to gift you a house in Jamaica." Keisha's eyes widened, and she felt a surge of disbelief. "A house? But how? Why would you do that for me?" Mrs. Wilson reached out and squeezed Keisha's hand. "Because you're part of our family, Keisha. You've been a blessing to us, and we want to see you thrive. We also want to help you start a business in Jamaica, something that will give you financial independence and the ability to support yourself and your community." Tears of joy and gratitude welled up in Keisha's eyes as she processed the Wilsons' generosity. I don't know what to say. This is more than I could have ever imagined. Thank you so much." The Wilsons enveloped Keisha in a warm embrace, their hearts swelling with pride and affection for the young woman who had become an integral part of their lives. In that moment, Keisha felt a renewed sense of purpose, a conviction that her sacrifices had not been in vain. With the Wilsons' support, Keisha began to map out her plans for the future. She would use the gift of the house in Jamaica as a foundation to start a small business, perhaps a bed and breakfast or a local craft shop, something that would allow her to support herself and give back to her community. The condominium in the U.S. that the Wilsons had offered would provide her with a secure base, a place to call home when she needed it. As Keisha's vision for her future took shape, she found herself shedding the weight of her family's betrayal. Instead of dwelling on the past, she focused on the opportunities that lay ahead, determined to create a life that reflected her resilience and self-worth. In the weeks that followed, Keisha worked tirelessly, dividing her time between preparing for her new business ventures and spending quality time with the Wilsons. She marveled at the warmth and generosity they had shown her, a stark contrast to the deception she had experienced back home. One evening, as Keisha sat on the porch of the Wilsons' home, gazing out at the city skyline, she felt a profound sense of gratitude and clarity. She had come to America with the hope of a better life, and while the path had been riddled with unexpected challenges, she had found something far more valuable, a family that truly cared for her, and the opportunity to create a future that was entirely her own. Keisha sat quietly on her bed, phone in hand, listening to her parents' tearful apologies on the other end. Her heart was still heavy with the betrayal, but she couldn't hold on to the anger any longer. "Mom, Dad, I forgive you," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I can't stay mad forever. I know you're sorry, and I know you didn't think about how much this would hurt me. But I've moved on, and I'm going to focus on bettering myself with this new opportunity." Her parents, along with her siblings, pleaded for another chance, but Keisha gently reminded them, "Whatever money you have left, use it wisely. Open a business or invest it so you can take care of yourselves. I won't be building any home on your land again, though. I'll figure it out on my own from here." Although the hurt still lingered, Keisha felt lighter, relieved that she could forgive them. While their relationship wouldn't be the same, she chose to stay in touch with them from time to time, content in knowing she had made peace, even if she couldn't forget. With a renewed determination, Keisha made the decision to forge ahead, leaving behind the pain of her family's betrayal and embracing the boundless possibilities that lay before her. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but with the Wilsons by her side and her own unwavering resilience, she was ready to embark on a new journey, one that would redefine her understanding of home, family, and the power of self-worth. Keisha's journey teaches us a profound lesson about perseverance, betrayal, and the unexpected kindness that can emerge from hardship. From her humble beginnings in Jamaica to her life-changing opportunity abroad, Keisha worked tirelessly to provide for her family, trusting them with her hard-earned money. But the painful revelation of their deceit, squandering her savings, fabricating lies about building a family home, and manipulating her love and loyalty, shattered her trust. Yet, Keisha's story also reminds us that betrayal does not define our worth or future. Through the generosity and care of the Wilson family, who embraced her like one of their own, Keisha found not only a second chance, but also a new home and fulfilling opportunities. Her journey underscores that while we may be betrayed by those closest to us, there are others who will recognize and appreciate our efforts. It highlights that where we begin is not necessarily where we'll end, and sometimes the people we strive to help may see us not as a source of support, but as a means to enrich themselves. Ultimately, Keisha's experience reflects the power of forgiveness, self-reliance, and the ability to find family and fulfillment in unexpected places. Subscribe for more interesting tales and real-life stories.